Last week, we began the conversation on understanding the law and its application in the Nigerian context. And last week, we were able to, talk you through what the law really is, how it is really applied, the different sets of laws governing both the center, the state, and the local government level. So we've been able to take you through all of that. And then we touched a bit on landlord tenancy issues, right? And I know that at that point, most of you were asking loads and loads of questions. All right, let's see how we can continue that conversation right now. And joining me on the phone line this beautiful Saturday morning, Libros Ochoma, constitutional lawyer and public affairs commentator. He's linking up with us right now. Libros, nice to have you join us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Victor.
And how are you doing?
I'm good. And you?
Great too.
And good morning to our listeners.
All right. So last week we touched a bit on laws governing landlord tenancy activities in Nigeria, and I know that that drew a whole lot of attention from some of our listeners. But for point of emphasis, Libros, take us through what the law really says when we are talking about landlord tenancy activities.
But sorry, quickly. Thank you, Victor. But please quickly permit me before I run through that. Somebody, I think the person listening to this program last week, and he asked me a question that wasn't on what we discussed about, but was on law.
Okay.
In the event, against the backdrop of what happened in the course of the week.
Right.
As he's a skit maker. And so he asked me about defamation, libel, and all of that.
That's
and
right.
Then the fact that it is not a criminal offense. And I said, yes, in Lagos, it is not. Defamation is not a criminal offense because it's been decriminalized after the law of defamation has been removed from the criminal codes of Lagos. But it is still a criminal offense in other states and in the code, criminal code of the Federation, the Southern region, so it's still a criminal offense. And so if you make a publication or you do a skit, for example, that defames somebody and the person listen to it in Delta,
right,
and he feels that his character had been injured in Delta. But the fact that the skit was made in Lagos does not mean that it is only Lagos that has jurisdiction.
Okay.
Delta can have jurisdiction anywhere, anybody can listen to it. So because I also had talked about this sometimes in one of those my interventions online.
I'm sure you are making reference to the issue that relates to that the lawyer Dele Farotimi, right?
Yes. I just needed to quickly. Not daily specific, just talked about my yesterday to just raise the issue of also it's part of understanding the law. We call it learning the law in our clan. And so I just needed to make reference to that because he was somebody that is into skit making. That asked me that question in the light of what happened between Femi Falana and the very dark man.
Okay.
That was why the person asked me that question.
All right.
So, but on the issue of the case of landlord and tenants mainly, there are laws that guide tenancy and lease. We call it tenancy laws of Lagos State or tenancy, laws of the various states. And primarily, what guides such agreement is what guides such transactions is the contractual agreement, which we call tenancy agreement, or the lease agreement between both parties. In the absence of an agreement, then there are certain there are certain conventions and practice that binds such transactions. Take for example, in the absence of an agreement, let's say you pay rent for a year. You've been paying your rent for 1 year,
right?
And there is no agreement on how tenancy should be determined. By determination now, when we say determination, how the tenancy can come to an end.
Okay.
But you pay your rent yearly. So the fact that you pay your rent yearly means that you are a yearly tenant.
Okay.
And so in the absence of an agreement, if that tenancy is to be determined, the landlord owes you a 6 months notice. 6 months notice.
Okay.
In the absence of an agreement, if you pay your rent monthly, what you owe is a what do you call it? A month notice. You can't say because you pay your rent monthly and then you will be given 6 months notice. No.
Okay.
Also, after that notice to quit, notice that will be issued to you is what we call statutory notice. It's a notice of owner's intention to recover possession. We call it 7 days statutory notice. The man gives you 7 days notice that if you do not live within 7 days, I'm going to apply to court to quit you.
Okay.
That notice must be issued before you can be, the application to the court can be made. Lastly, also, the fact that there is no agreement between the two of you, and that but you are paying rent, does not mean that. And also, sorry, the fact that the landlord are taking lots does not mean that you can no longer pay rent. No.
Okay.
Because that's an erroneous impression. The people will say, well, since we're in court, that time would they court? And not would they pay rent again? No. What you will pay at that time is no longer called rent, but means profits. Means profits.
Okay.
Means profits.
Right.
Means profits. So that's one, because now the landlord says you are no longer a tenant. You are no longer a tenant in that property. So the landlord no longer recognizes you as a tenant. And so
this means profit now. Is it going to be the same amount that I was paying before, or can I pay less?
No. They will calculate what it depends. What is calculated, what is the value of the property time. It might not be even a year. It might be calculated daily or monthly or weekly. That the value of this property that you are holding on to, you are holding the property against the wish of the landlord. This is the value of it weekly or daily. And in some cases, the court can even ask you to be paying it into an interest yielding account to be opened by the court. So if at the end of the day, the tenancy is determined by the court, the landlord can have value for his money.
So let me ask the big question now. So the big question here is, at what point
quickly, sorry, Victor,
right.
Victor, let me also say this, because this is another erroneous impression. Even lawyers make that mistake also.
Okay.
Before now, your notice is made on the eve of the anniversary of the tenancy. When I mean the eve of the anniversary, for example, you are a yearly tenant who pays rent from January to December.
Mm-hmm.
If a landlord wants to issue you a notice, he must issue you that notice by 1st of July to terminate on the 31st of December, because your rent start to run from January. That is the eve of the anniversary of your rent. That was what the court said then. But now, Lagos State government has said, look, Lagos State laws and judicial interpretation in Lagos State. The essence, whether the notice is given to you on the eve or the notice flows into another rent, the essence is for you to be given a notice. The man can give you, whether you have to be given 6 months notice to determine the tenancy.
Right.
And so you can no longer say, no, the notice was issued short of 4 months in my tenancy. But the fact is that, was it 6 months notice? And the demand come to you before the expiration of the 6 month notice.
All right, so let's talk
if it comes after the expiration, then there is no defense.
So let's talk about the very big one now, because a lot of times there's always this contention between the landlord and the tenant as to the point where a tenant can be evicted. A lot of times we find out that issues drag on for so long. You've not paid me. Okay, my tenancy has expired. Well, we are in court and all of that. So at what point will it be right for a landlord to evict a tenant?
Like I said, the landlord issues all the required notice, and if you refuse to move, the landlord will approach the rent tribunal, which is the magistrate court, and sitting as a rent tribunal, and then ask for an order to vacate you from his premises. And once the court grants the order, the bailiff of the court will come and drive you out of the house. It is not the landlord that will do it by himself. Doing it by himself will mean resorting to self-help.
Okay. And self-help shouldn't
If
be...
you do it by yourself, that means self-help is unknown to law. Once you do that, that means you have committed a criminal offense. The man can come tomorrow and say, 30 million lost for his house.
For your house. All right, so let's talk about...
once the court grants an order.
So let's talk about the arbitrary increase. Like, was it Bode that asked the question last week? Issues that relates to a landlord increasing his rent more than twice or in a year. So what does the law say, and how can the law address that?
What the law says is that you cannot, as a landlord, you cannot increase your rent more than 20% in a tenancy year. 20%, or not even twice a year. You can't increase for more than 20%. But like I explained last week, what happens is law says you can't increase more than 20%. This only happens where there is availability. You know, the law of economics, demand and supply. When supply is low and demand is high, price will naturally go up. And so the law says you can't increase more than 20%. And the man increase the rent and you take him to court. You be sure that after that court case, you will leave that house. So the landlord don't go allow you. You don't see tenant when carry landlord go court when remain for the house. So that is the crisis here. So one thing, the law says one thing. The law also does not back up what it says, with the infrastructure to empower. Just like I said, in some countries, the houses in Singapore, for example, the houses are more than the people. So in that case, if the law says you cannot increase for more than 10%, if the landlord just do, now tenants would sack landlords.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Right.
But here it is the landlord that sacks tenants. And then also, even in other places, because there is availability, the rent tribunals are also up to task. So if you default, the government will come after you. And like mortgage, consistently you have mortgage homes that are building properties. In America, for example, the house practically still belongs to government. If you default in tax, that they can come and take your house and sell it and collect their tax. So unlike here, which is a different case, which brings me now to the issue I was talking about last week on the probate.
Yes, just a second. Before you address the issue of probate, some questions are coming in here for you. This one says, "Good morning, Traffic Radio. My landlord gave me a 6-month quit notice because of a minor issue. What can I do?" Chris is sending that one in from Iju Shaga.
Go and beg the landlord. Go and beg the landlord and try to make peace.
You really?
Some landlord can be high-handed. Some landlord can be. You will not be asking if these are the same people. If these people have a make of human kindness in them, Over somebody fried chicken, you say the chicken they disturb you, give him quit notice. Say somebody is a bachelor, you give him quit notice for being for discrimination. You say you don't want a single lady in your house. If you're a single lady, you shouldn't bring boyfriend. All kinds of discrimination, and yet this person has, for this fact that the person has paid you rent for that period, he's the owner of that place. Because even though you are the overlord, I mean to use that word, you are the owner as a tenant in your place who has furnished consideration for the duration of the tenancy. He has an equitable interest, ownership in that property. So I'm not for you to begin to give him terms and conditions that are outside of the agreement that will also look discriminatory. But like I said, the laws here, in most cases, can only bite the poor, can't bite the rich. Look at Lagos State government making laws not on landlord not to increase rent arbitrarily and excluded areas where the rich have properties.
Okay, let's jump into that administration of estate and properties, which is the probate law that you just touched on right now. What does the law say about this in Nigeria?
So, first and foremost, there's need for people to understand that at the Ministry of Justice, there is the office, they call it the Administrator General, Office of the Administrator General of Estates. What that office does, for example, if you die, ordinarily in other societies, under the law, if somebody dies intestate means you die without a will. Okay. Originally, the property of that person, devolves to the estate of the state. So it is that office that should be managing those estates. But because those things hardly take effect here, when somebody dies, the property is there, they collect rent. But the day you want to sell that property, if it's a property with a CFO and the owner of the CFO is deceased or a registered consent, that is when you will know that you need a letter of administration, because you now need to apply to the probate registrar of the court to grant you a letter to administer that estate. It is the same thing with an account. Your father has an account in a bank and then he died, his pension is still. You are not the owner of the account. Automatically, once he dies, the bank will put a lien on the account. Post no debits. So until you get a letter to administer that account, that money still pass there lost.
All right, just a second. Once you apply, I think somebody wants to, somebody wants to talk to you. Let's see if we can pick this call. Lots of the lines are buzzing forever. Hello there. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah, I greet our guest. My name is Salami.
Oh, Salami, how are you doing?
Salami, good morning.
Right.
Yeah, I have a question for our guest. I want to know at what year interval should landlord or landlady should be increasing rent?
Okay, what year interval, right?
I mean increment in rent interval.
Okay, all right. He'll respond to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Libros.
I talked about that before. I said the law says if you increase, you can't increase more than 20%. The law did not talk about which year interval. But for a particular year, you cannot increase for more than 20%. That is what the law says.
So he can do it yearly?
Yes, but it's yearly. You must not do more than 20% a year. That's what the law says.
Okay.
So these are some of the conditions. The problem for the landlord really is the fact that if he now increases and the man says, I will not pay, and you take him to court, and you want to enforce that you have increased, the court is going to look at the law. What does the law permit? You increase from 200 to 500,000. And the man says, I no go pay. And you say, leave my house. And in leaving the house, you say, no, he's owing you rent of 500,000. The court is going to look at, no, what are you permitted to do? Oh, 20%. Okay, what is the person is owing you? It's not 200,000. It's not 500,000, but 240,000. Yes, that's 20% of 200,000. So that's what the law is going to look at for that year. So, but like I said, unfortunately, the law, mostly the government that is supposed to enforce this law, also accosted because they are not different from the Shylock landlords.
All right, so Libros, I would love it if your responses can be much shorter. So let's get back to this probate act now. So in Nigeria, you said it's quite different from what obtains in some other advanced part of the world.
Yes, in Nigeria, once the person dies in the state, for example, you can still begin to manage that property, collect rent, except there's a crisis. It is when there's a crisis now, you drag yourself to the Ministry of Justice, and then it's okay. Since you cannot agree on who should administer, let the states continue to administer it pending. And that's where you now see the state will come and put a signboard that this property is administered by the office of the Administrator General of Lagos State. So, for you to administer that estate, for you to do on it, you will need a letter of administration. Okay. And the process is, in Lagos State, the process is, very streamlined now. It is unknown at the probate registry. You go there, apply, you get a form. If it is money in an account too, once it is money in account too, for the bank to grant you access to that account or move the money now into an estate account, you will need a letter of administration. Once you obtain that letter of administration, You take it to the bank. The bank will now move the money to an estate account, and the administrators of the estate can begin to draw from that. What do you call it?
That account. All right. So the big question. So the big question now. But let's take this call. I think some people are trying to really speak with you. Hello there. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
All right. What's your name?
Femi is my name, calling from Second Lagos.
All right, Femi. Nice to hear from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks to our lawyer. Please, sir. I moved into a rented apartment in 2001, and we're paying 3,000 naira because we're on prepaid meter to the landlady monthly. Then, in June this year, the agent, she got her advisor to get a one place for 3 tenants.
I can't hear you. I can't. Please reduce the volume of your radio. I can't even hear you.
Okay. You know what, Femi? Just reduce the volume of your radio.
One of my constituents, she has been collecting 3,000 since 2001, but now June we now started recharging our one place with 1,000 per tenant.
Okay.
That's 3 of us were recharging at 1,000.
Okay.
Now she has brought good notice for us, and my rent will expire in June next year. She has given me good notice with 6 months notice.
Okay, so you are paying 3,000 since 2001.
We were paying 3,000 per month.
Okay.
Since 2001 until June this year, when she got a single phase meter for us.
Okay.
And since we've been recharging, we've been paying 1,000 to recharge every month.
Okay.
So now we got a quick notice for me that my rent will expire in June next year. 6 months notice.
Okay. So
what can I do?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I can see that the issue of landlord tenants is resurfacing again.
Yes. So I'm done. I'm done with the issue of probate. I'm done with it.
Okay.
So I could barely hear him, but he said from 2002 he started paying 3,000 naira per month.
Yes, and
then
they were recharging their light with 1,000 this year, but now the landlady has brought a quit notice for June next year. He wants them to quit and leave the house. So I'm sure he's asking, is it right?
He's lucky. He's lucky that the landlord gave him 6 months notice. He's a monthly tenant. What the landlord owe him is a month's notice, not even 6 months. Because he pays his rent monthly.
Okay.
In the absence of an agreement, he pays his rent monthly. So what the landlord owe him is a month's notice, not 6 months
not
notice.
6 months. All right.
But the landlord probably wants to be on the safer side because he is not aware. So that is why he's issuing 6 months. But ordinarily, what the landlord owes him is a month notice.
All right. So
being
Femi,
a monthly tenant.
All right. Femi, I hope that answers your question. Most of you are still talking about this. Hello there.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, my name is Bode.
Bode, where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from the island.
Island, all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I called last week.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, regarding this same topic about...
yeah, you were the one that said your landlord was increasing the rent twice in a year.
Twice a year.
Oh, yes.
So I just want
he has no right to do that. Your landlord has no right to do that.
Okay, go ahead, buddy.
How can the government, Lagos State government, and the lawyers and the whole judiciary system, how can they protect tenants from these landlords and agents,
Okay.
that increase their rent and just
arbitrarily?
Sometimes it's not even the landlord that increases the rent. It's just agents.
Okay. All right.
So is there a law
that can protect the tenant, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, buddy. Let's allow Libros to respond to that. So, Libros, what are you guys doing as lawyers to look at best ways of protecting the interests of the tenants? I mean, if you have people that are increasing their things arbitrarily like this, what can you do to protect tenants?
Let me disappoint Bode. The same way, do you know how many lawyers in Lagos are tenants also? Sometimes, quickly, Victor, people believe that you went to law school to protect the society, forgetting that also you are a private citizen. You also, go through the society and feel the pangs and the pain of these things. So sometimes when some of us do, is what we are doing now. Take our time to educate tenants. But the government, what government do in other society, the rent tribunals, for example, you have a lot of rent tribunals and cases should not last more than 1 week. And government also provides more houses for people. So there are alternatives. So you don't have to look for a house ad infinitum. And there are terms and conditions that must be fulfilled. And if those terms and conditions are breached, there are tenancy boards that a tenant can go quickly to. And in 2 days, you don't even have to appear. That issue is resolved. And if a landlord is found wanting, the landlord is issued a warning. But here, those things are not there. So it is not the job of a lawyer. Is a private businessman, a private practitioner, for example. He also wants to make money. So if, for example, you have nothing stop people from setting up NGO, raise funds and say, this NGO is to protect tenants against arbitrary landlords. We are going to be employing lawyers to protect tenants. Private people can do that. But I am telling you that what happens, I will give you Canada, for example.
Okay.
That's where a lot of Nigerians are going to now.
Right.
If you rent a house, there are standard agreements and there are standard clauses in that agreement. There are what the landlord must provide. There are what the tenant obligations of the landlord, the duties of the landlord, obligations of the tenant.
Right.
If, for example, you are in a house, there are what we call latent defects and patent defects. All those defects in the house, it is the landlord that will fix them. But like land use charge, it is for the landlord to pay. But in Lagos, how many landlords pay? They will ask you to pay. If you don't pay, they will ask you quick notice. Who do you now report to? There are no tenancy boards. When you go to court, drag zone forever, and the landlord comes and says, leave my house. But if you have a tenancy board, for example, in every local area that can be activated to ensure that tenants are protected. It's not enough to make law to say we want to protect tenants.
All right.
Every community should have a tenancy board that you can quickly go to. They don't need to see you. We'll look into your case and, if possible, seal up that landlord's property for collecting arbitrary rent.
All right. There's some messages. Some messages are popping in for you here. Yeah, this one says, "Hello, everyone. I am Smith, and I am enjoying the program. I want to know how." Okay, it says, "I want to know what are the rights of employees in cases of wrongful termination." So this is drifting from the landlord-tenant issue. So employer-employees.
That's part of the law.
Right.
Employer-employee. That's labor law.
Okay.
You have two types of employment. One that is what we call a statutory flavored employment and a master-servant relationship, whether we like to hear it or not. Most of us are in a master-servant relationship in terms of employment. So the statutory flavored employment is the one that is governed by statute. There's a law setting up, like your radio station now. There's a law setting up that radio station. There is a statute governing how employment of that radio station would be done. In the absence of following that law, you can take government to court, and the court will ask that you be reinstated and all your allowances be paid. But in the master-servant relationship, what do you call it? A master-servant relationship employment.
Employment, right?
All the employer owes you is what is spelled out in your contract of employment or the handbook that's the law governing the employment.
Okay.
And in the absence of that, he owes you 1 month's salary in lieu of notice. Because he owes you a notice. If your employment is wrongly terminated without notice, they will say, look at the contract of employment. If the contract of employment says you must be given notice before termination, or you give 3 months notice to quit, to resign. In the absence of that, they will say, okay, pay 3 months salary to this man in lieu of notice.
Okay.
That's all. And that's why most times, when you are given a court, when you are negotiating an employment, what people do, especially those professionals, they will ensure that the terms and conditions are in their favor to make sure that they are protected in the event of termination.
All right. This one says,
in the event of wrongful termination, what the man can do is to go back to his contract of employment to check what are his remedies.
All right, then this one says, good morning and happy weekend. Please, what is the procedure for filing a lawsuit in Nigeria? I want to file one against a loan application called Easy Buy for defamation. Shegun is sending that one in.
Simple. It depends on filing. The first question is generic. What are the procedure? You give in Lagos State, for example, you give notice of your intention to go to court. You give the notice at the expiration of the 30 days. You file your action. For defamation, you file a notice of cease and disease from such further publication. And in the absence of that, you can go to court. We call it pre-action protocol. But if you feel that the defamation is a continuous process, you can now ask the courts, to vary the pre-action protocol, grant you a order for cease and disease, and then while you follow pre-action protocol. And then quickly, I don't know if the person will ask me this one again, but I get this one always. The processes. Lagos State government, for example, has offices for counseling, for handling abuses. So anybody that is in abusive marriage, try and reach Lagos State government offices for counseling and then to report abuse. And also processes of filing divorces. You can meet your lawyer and the lawyer will talk to you, counsel you, and also talk about reconciliation. If the reconciliation fails, then you can approach the court for a divorce. These are just generic issues that a lot of people are going through, right, that sometimes they feel they don't even have anybody to talk to. But when programs like this come up, it's an opportunity to just talk about all of them.
All right. Then this one says, good morning, Traffic Radio. I'm so pleased listening to this program. What is the difference between civil and criminal law in Nigeria? You didn't put your name. I would have loved it if your name was Civil law is like you and I. We have issues. We go to contracts, commercial transactions, torts. You curse me, I curse you. These are civil issues. But criminal matter is an offense against the state. If, for example, you commit something that will say, you do something that is likely to cause breach of public peace. Even if it is a civil wrong, for example. That's why we say a civil wrong. A civil wrong and a criminal action. It's a criminal action becomes a crime. So if I do it, for example, you come to my house. Maybe you come now, curse me. But you came with a crowd, group of boys, to throw stones and do all of those things that will likely disturb public peace. Right. I can sue you for civil wrong. At the same time, I can report the matter to the police to deal with it criminally because your conduct can likely breach public peace. Okay. And also cause public nuisance. Okay.
So that's basically it says civil is a wrong. A crime. Take the case of battery. Battery can be criminal, it can be civil.
Okay.
You slap a man. The man, you have wronged him under civil law. At the same time, because you owe him a duty not to touch him, you have assaulted him criminally. So he can decide to say, I want to go to police to report you for assaulting me.
Right. Or
at the same time, I'm suing you for damages for battery.
Okay, so let's begin to round this off right now. Libros, the long and short of all of this is that the law is made there to protect the citizens of Nigeria. But in 30 seconds, as we round this up, yes, some have said the law can be kicked in any way and that in countries like Nigeria, the law can be predictable. Some have said the law can be bought as well. So, in rounding off, is the law fully applied in the Nigerian society?
Let me tell you, I was in, some years ago, I was in court, a federal high court, before Justice, he's retired now, I've forgotten his name. Justice.
30 seconds. You have 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
On the other side.
Right.
Yes. Chief Rotimi Williams was the lawyer on the other side. And a young lawyer was, because he was on all fours in his case, was, let me use the word, the everyday word, was throwing Chibrotimi William in court. The thing is, people don't even assess the law. People don't seek counseling. If you get problem, look for lawyer. Make a lawyer your friend. Ask some questions before you do anything. And if it is in your favor, it no get hard to twist and reach. But when you do them and you are not too sure, and you still went ahead to do it, you are not too sure, you still went ahead to do it, the law can, in that case, the law can go against you. Okay. Depend on the brilliance of a lawyer. Right. And that's why they tell you one lawyer go this side, one lawyer go that side. On one matter. And that's why they tell you there are 3 sides to every story. All right. Your side, my side, and the truth. And it depends on how your lawyer is able to project the truth.
We'll leave it at that for now. It's always very nice having you on the program. Libros, you can see the kind of attraction you're really gaining on the program. And we must look for some other time where we can break all of this down. But let me say a very big thank you to you for connecting with us on the program. All right, then. Okay, Libros Ochoma is a legal practitioner of several years standing, and he is also a public commentator. He's been taking us through the best ways of understanding the law and its application in the Nigerian context. We have to go. The program has been produced by Dio Anthony, Christiana Gbemileke in the building as well, Afe John and Okpayemi Shodunke. They are our social media team, not forgetting our executive producer, Tayo Akonle. My name is Victor Oteri. Have a splendid weekend. Enjoy yourselves, but do that moderately. Bye.